My name is Emese. I teach French culture, mostly literature, but sometimes other things as well. I think the very first course I taught was a course on the ballet russe, which is a ballet that was mostly Russian to begin with, but they got started in France and became really famous. They were the link between the high classical ballet of Russia and the more modern ballet that evolved in other parts of the world. After that, it's been mostly one book or another, or several books or plays. They're literary. So, for example, we talked about surrealist theater, or we talked about classical theater, Molière in the 17th century, or we went through most of the major novels of the 19th century, and they're wonderful, wonderful novelists, French novelists. And we do all this in English, mind you. Back as early as the 16th century with Montaigne, who developed the literary genre of an essay. I wanted to find out why he was so important in the French canon. And so we explored that together with study group participants. You know, I have taught over 20 courses for olli. I almost never teach the same course twice. The funny thing is that sometimes the course I propose has a direct link to the times that we're living in. You know, for example, I proposed a course on Camus, and one of the famous books of Camus is The Plague. And this happened just as COVID was getting started. He examines the effect of having a plague in a society and how various people react to the plague, and then how the city starts to come out of it, and who has died and what is made of those deaths, and why some people died and some people survived. So it's all a very interesting thing. The 19th century novels were the ones I think that probably went over best. The recent one was Germinal by Émile Zola. It really is a great novel, and it brings into focus things like the capitalist system and the problems of labor and how labor can be taken advantage of. Then there's a strike and so on. So it was very interesting at a time when there was also beginning to be a recession, and the issue of workers getting paid a living wage was an issue. You know, that was particularly interesting to me. But then Victor Hugo is a huge name. So we looked at Notre Dame de Paris, which is translated as The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's a fascinating novel, realistic in some ways and very romantic in other ways. We looked at Balzac novels. Oh, those are great. We also did some 20th century. In addition to Camus, we looked at some Sartre writing, more the theater than the novels. We looked at Simone de Beauvoir because her work fit in so well with the Camus and Sartre. They were all contemporaries of each other and were very, very much interested in the same topics of existentialism. And then a recent one was Marguerite de Yourcenar. She was the first woman to be inducted into the French Académie Française, which is a huge honor. There are only 40 people at a time, and she was the first woman elected to it. She writes historical novels, but they're very real and well imagined, so that the psychology of the characters plays beautifully into it all. I tried one course in poetry because the 19th century poets from Baudelaire to the other Verlaine, Mallarmé, and Rimbaud are so famous. But it's very hard to teach poetry because you have to do it in translation. And even if you put the English text next to the poem, every translation is actually an interpretation. And so different translators will interpret the poem differently with different words and we choose. And in any case, you can't reproduce the rhythm, the music of the poem as it was written in French. It was a good effort, but I don't think I'd do it again. No. What I really enjoy is that I get to talk about works of literature and other things that I have loved for a long time with people who are intelligent and educated and have a long life experience, so that it brings enrichment to the works that we're looking at. Some of these works that I offer I myself haven't looked at since, say, graduate school. And so I can go deeper. I can re-examine these works, after my own experience of several decades. And it's always different. It's always richer. But what's exciting to me is that I'm getting more deeply into these works, so that, yes, I taught them in college and so on, but I taught them with undergraduates. Now, undergraduates are great. Don't get me wrong, but it's very different talking about these works of art with people my age, okay, who've had a long life experience, who are educated, who have read, many of them have, are readers and have read lots and lots of works. And so you sort of pool our resources and our understanding of these works. And so you see these works differently through the eyes of different people. And a lot of the people who followed my courses come from different disciplines. So they weren't all literature majors in college. We have someone who taught in law school, for example. Very different perspectives. That's exciting. Anybody who can read English and express an opinion in English is more than welcome, because one of the things that I tell to the participants in our groups is that a 20th century critic said that any work of art is incomplete until it has been completed by the readers. The readers add their knowledge, their experience, and so on to the work, and that completes the work. Now, it will have lots of different completions, because every person who reads a work will read it slightly different and understand it slightly different. I encourage anybody who wants to. I don't expect any background at all. I might say that any number of them come back and take courses with me, which is very satisfying. Even though we're teaching through Zoom, one starts to make friends who've appeared several times. And so it becomes almost like a tea party. I think what my study groups work like book clubs, that we all read the same text, and I often prepare questionnaires, but they're only to suggest topics that we might discuss. Well, Olli to me is a community of people who are intelligent and educated and interested and are eager to keep their minds active no matter what. So it's wonderful to join that kind of group, because it's so easy for people my age, their age, to feel a little out of it, a little isolated, not knowing where to turn for a good conversation. Novels have huge emotional and psychological and historical and social context. And so we can talk about all of those things within the works that we're studying. My favorite part is the teaching, being able to discuss with people things that I find worth discussing. And I'm not sure. I may have to branch out or repeat courses. So far, I don't think I have repeated any courses. Find a new topic to teach, and there are always new topics to teach. One of the issues for me has been that now that I've taught a lot of the really, really famous works, I'd like to teach some other works, but especially more contemporary works are not easily accessible. There's certain authors that I love, but I can't find translations of their works, so I can't offer them as topics at Olli. So I keep looking, I keep hoping. I have thought, however, of having maybe a French book club and read those works more slowly and discuss them in French. I'm still playing with that idea, but I haven't come to a decision yet. My experience with Olli has been great. What can I say? I mean, our discussions are just wonderful. I also enjoy at least some of the people who are invited to give a lecture. When Stacey Abrams gave a lecture on Zoom, it was very, very interesting. Anthony Fauci was also presented on Zoom. So I look for things like that. I think before COVID, I probably went to a couple of lectures. I don't remember exactly. I think there was one about voting and how districts were moved around so as to advantage either the Democrats or the Republicans. And so they went through the mathematics of how that would work and how it could be gerrymandered. It was a fascinating session because it's something that we all think about, There's that. And then some of the Friday Lunch and Learn series have also been very good. I don't often do it because I get busy during the day and then I forget. But if there's a topic that I notice that I really, really, really want to hear, then of course I make myself a note. And I'm pretty close to going to some of the Friday sessions, which are in person and on Zoom, because it would be nice to see people whom I know, share conversation, coffee or whatever. Now that everything can be done on Zoom, it's far less expensive to talk to important people. It's actually a huge advantage for Olli and for all the Olli members, because they can now offer lectures by very important people, but they don't have to pay the transportation costs to get them to campus. Because of that, and also because the lecturers can stay at home and do their Zoom right at home, they've been offering some wonderful lectures. One other thing, which is I would encourage anybody and everybody to find something that they really enjoy and teach it. Because teaching itself is very enriching. It forces you to understand what you're talking about. Because if you don't, you'll lose your audience. And so it's a kind of self-discipline, which is well worth it and very enjoyable in the outcome of having discussions with people. They don't even have to know a huge amount about it. They just must like it enough that they want to discuss it. Some people make presentations, and that's fine. That's fine. For me, the discussion is what's really wonderful.